Hello, everyone, and welcome to FlowFest 2024. I'm Fabio Filippelli, VP of Customer Success at Flowable, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's session in the business stream. While there are other exciting sessions happening in the technical stream and in the innovation stream, we are glad you have chosen to be with us here. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our speaker, Oksana Dovorecka.
Hello, Fabio. Very nice
Hi,
to see you. Hey.
I had the privilege really to work with you in the past, right? I mean, and we had quite a nice journey together, right? I mean, in general, like Oksana was a leader in the banking industry. I mean, she brought live multiple Flowable solutions. And today, I mean, we will show you what she did in the enterprise sector. And yeah, it's an honor to have you here, Oksana.
Thank you, Fabio. I've been to this event so many times. I'm really excited to speak at it. So I hope people will find the presentation interesting.
I mean, your presentation, you chose a fancy title, right? Revolutionizing global bank, empowering knowledge workers with intelligent workflows. What will the talk be about?
It does sound fancy, but if you ask me to say it in a very plain English, this is about sort of my journey and the journey of my organization and how we use low-code workflow solutions to maximize the value that all the knowledge workers bring to the business, not just on the front line, but also in the support functions, in the risk, in audit, in control, everywhere. And that's what I'm going to tell you about. Yep.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. I mean, when you work with large banks, right, I'm aware that there are a lot of pain points, right? I mean, we need to optimize the value chain and stuff like that. So I'm very interested to hear what you're going to talk about. But I think before we start, just maybe for the audience, there will be a possibility to ask questions. You have the possibility on the right side all the time to put your questions in throughout the speech. Don't wait to the end. At the end, we're going to have enough time to engage with your questions and answer any questions you have. But I think today the show is yours, Oksana, right? So stage is yours.
Thank you, Fabio. So yes, hello, everybody. Good time of day where you are. This is London calling. I always wanted to say that. My name is Oksana Dovorecka, and I have been a transformation and a change manager for a very long time in lots of financial institutions, from very large ones where we'd had release once every 6 months to small fintech providers where we could release twice a day and sometimes did. I am a certified project manager, product owner, Six Sigma Green Belt, and I've got some other digitalization accolades. But also I've spent since 2019 that very big chunk of my career working with Flowable and working with low-code solutions. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to tell you about my journey and the journey of within part of my organization and how we integrated the workflow capabilities to empower knowledge workers. So what I'm going to talk about is how do we select a business case. I'm going to describe how we set up a team, how our implementation journeys were working, how we actually built the workflows, and also how the benefits have been derived and how we will look at them. And as Fabio said, there will be a Q&A session at the end. So if you have some questions, pop them into the right-hand side or wait until the end conflict to ask them directly. Okay, so when you are a commercial customer, what you generally want, you want a value for money and you want a good service. When you build capabilities for internal consumption, there is a very different drivers. So what drives us is the need to reduce business cost, to increase productivity, to have a better risk control. And the sponsors, they generally want it cheap, and they want it yesterday, or in any case, as soon as possible with the lowest possible cost. This is what we need to deliver. So as a delivery manager, what does it give you? It gives you a very specific parameter. So you would need to deliver something like a proof of concept, and you need to do it fast. And we're talking weeks rather than months. You will have a small team. because the time people spend working with you on your capabilities is the time people are not doing anything else. And if they're expensive knowledge resources, their time is highly valuable. Also, we do not have a luxury of being able to do multiple prototypes and then try them and throw them. We have to make sure that whatever we do, our work is meaningful and reusable. So that's where we start. So in terms of selecting the right business case, what are we competing with internally? I mean, if you're an Uber, you compete with Lyft and Bolt. If you're Hilton Hotels, you compete with Marriott and Four Seasons. But when you are a change manager within internal organization, what is your competition? And basically, it is Excel, people, and systems. So for all of its multiple faults, Excel and all the other Microsoft Office applications, they are free at the point of use. They're very well known, and you can set up a very basic process control or a workflow with them without having anybody going through any extensive training. And that's a competition. I mean, throwing people at the problem has been a corporate sport since they've built the first pyramid. And in some cases, that is what the business would want to do because they might have the people budget, they might not have the technical budget. And sometimes the solution will depend on that. There are existing systems. And from the technology point of view, at least where I come from, generally, technology wants to use the existing systems and they would rather enhance the ones we have that bring the ones which are fairly new and unknown technologies. On the positive side, you would have already established development process, maintenance, change control, and everything else. On the negative side, what it sometimes means is that system might not have a capabilities for the workflow. It might have built 40 years ago in COBOL. Still happens. There may be multiple change agents who would like to go and see more from that system. So your voice is a very small one in the chorus of a lot of them across the organization. So what does Flowable allow us to do? So it is a low-code solution, but because low-code solution, we can build it up and we can deliver it very quickly for as long as the platform has been deployed. That is a very good positive for us. It comes with a built-in user authorization, with audit trails, with controls, and also we're very certain that once the data is within our workflow, it is there and it is safe, and nobody can go and override it on a bad day in Excel. On the sides that we need to consider, it still needs to be delivered. So we still need engineering resources. Once the workflow is done and up and running, you will need to keep the lights on. You need to keep updating it. You need to maintain the infrastructure. You need to make sure that it's working as desired. You might come up some small bugs, improvements. So you would need to have that support there. And what I found out, it is very, very important that you point it out to sponsors and end users and decision makers earlier on, because that ongoing cost of maintenance, even if it's small, it still needs to be factored in. But ultimately, from that point of view, the choice of solution will always depend on what business problem you're trying to solve. So what is a good business case? In my experience over the last how many years, I've looked at about maybe 30 plus different business cases. And the way we look at them is we would take it and we'll engage the team, we'll engage the modelers and the developers. We'll go in, we'll work with end users, we'll ask them a lot of questions, trying to understand why they're trying to solve the underlying problem, why they're trying to solve a symptom of a much bigger underlying problem, or they're just trying to put a patch on something which doesn't work and they heard of Flowable and they think it's good. So shortly, the three basic rules of thumb. Once again, in my experience, which makes a really good business case for a workflow. So the process has to be stable, number one. And it has to be stable at the point of digitalization, because some processes would look very stable from the private jet on which executives fly, and they look down and say, that is an easily repeatable process. But when you go down and start looking at the level where it would make sense to automate or digitize a process, you'll find out that there's a lot of variables. For example, if you take regulatory stress tests, which regulators make all the financial organizations do on a regular basis, it looks like they're doing the same thing, but once you get into the bottom of it, it's run differently. And because the process is not repeatable 100%, you cannot do it. The good business case would be credit approvals, because you need to structure the credit, you need to make a decision. And it doesn't matter who the customer is, it doesn't matter what the parameters are, what documentation is, those are variables. The process is simple and it's repeatable. And that's why it's stable, good business case. The second thing is, if you can't BPM it, business process model it, you cannot model it in Flowable. And what that means, the process has to be defined. It cannot be an art. It like an audit, which basically would go and take a different turn depending on what was found in the previous step. It has to be a bit of a science. You need to, for Flowable to be able to absorb it, you need to be able to map it, and behind the engine behind it requires some very clear rules. They can be very complex, can be very creative, but they have to be defined. Having said that, there are multiple cases where you would go into the process. The process is a mess, but you can sit around and you can think about it and you can define it better. You can redefine it, you can rewrite it, you can put some more definition into roles, into responsibilities, into control points, and then you can model it, and then you can put it into Flowable. And the rule number 3 is that you need to know that business needs a workflow. You need handovers, you need to have rules, you need to have a journey. Because, for example, it shouldn't be the way that somebody comes to you and says, like, oh, I heard you guys got a really new fancy software and you can release like workflows very fast and very effectively. Can you make us a workflow which has one step and a multiple reporting requirements? And at which point we'll say, guys, it looks like you have a problem where you need to have a data storage solution, and it doesn't look like you need a workflow. So from that point of view, you need to understand what the business is trying to solve. And it is quite difficult, but we've learned to say no to the business problems where we can see that it would not be a good use case, or it would be a, what the British say, the fudge. Okay, so now we've got the right tool. We've got the right business case. We've got a sponsor who is given all his trust and some funding towards you and your team. And what do you do next? How do you work it? How do you engage your stakeholders? How do you work with the business? Because the sponsor wants everything yesterday. The business wants everything today. You need to put things together. So from experience, came up with the timeline, which works quite well in a large organization. And it goes roughly as follows. So we start with a proof of concept. And the proof of concept, what it does, its sole aim is to have a very basic outline of the process. You would have maybe 1 or 2 steps. You would have 1 or 2 user groups. You would have very basic forms, because at this point, we don't care about the data we collect. We care about the functionality that we can present. We don't release it into production. We keep it in the dev environment, but within 6 to 10 iterations, and in my world, iteration is about 2 weeks. So about 2 to 3 months, depending on how patient your sponsors are. We would have a tailgate and would have a presentation. And what we would present there would be that very basic but working process. And the powerful message that it gives is that this is not a Figma wireframe. This is not a PowerPoint or Microsoft Visio imagination how the process would work. It is there and it's working, and you can click on buttons and you can see the data being created. That to us is a very good, powerful tool to get buy-in, because it works. In a time that other projects will just finish writing their business requirements, we have something that works. So from that point of view, we ask for green light and we go and we deliver the minimum viable product, MVP. And I personally prefer to do it in 2 stages. So MVP 0.5 and MVP 1.0. So what's the difference? So MVP 0.5 would be the process that we would have worked with the end users very closely together, but all in this imaginary development and testing environment. We would set up all the necessary roles, we would set up all necessary controls, or at least the minimum ones, and then we release it into production, what we call a friends and family. So those would be the end users who've been with us from the start, maybe a couple of more. But what we want to do with that, and the sole purpose of the 0.5, is to figure out exactly what we've missed, because this fantastic crystal ball of understanding what the users want and what the users tell you does not always work perfectly well. And until you start putting real business cases through that workflow, you will never find out what the differences are. I mean, from my experience, how long is a business day? We thought 8 hours, business thought 24. So we got into production and we found out immediately, literally within the first 2 hours, that it does not work as it should do. So we put the fix in. And that's the MVP 0.5. Once we collect all this fantastically useful, very rich data, very good feedback, we would then get it and we have what we called MVP 1.0. So that would be what everybody else would call the proper MVP. It's not everything, but it would have all the necessary features. It would have all the necessary functionalities. It would have what the end users have wanted. And what we generally do at that point is we also would like to have a demo, a tollgate, call it what you like. But we want to showcase that workflow to the sponsors, to the senior business stakeholders. And what we try to do it, we try to get end users to do it. So we would be on the call. We'll sit very quietly in the corner, hoping that everything will work. And we get the end users to talk people through how it works for them. They would show the features that they came up with, that were implemented. They would show how they use it. They obviously will come up with a whole long list of things we can improve, because we can always improve better. And that, once again, is a really, really good and very powerful way, is that we would, when the end users speak about your product and they're happy about it, it speaks millions, because they feel that they've been part of the journey, and that shows a fantastic buy-in. So on our side, we would not need to go and sort of beg, plead, and threaten people to start using the new workflow. If we build it well, they will want to use it, and they will want to tell other people about it. And that always feels like a fantastic feedback for me, for my team. Well, I think for everybody. So after that, it depends. It depends on how much money you have left. It depends on what are the bigger plans in more strategic way. But basically, you will start transforming the minimum viable product into full functioning app. And that process can take between, 12, 24 months. Depends how many changes you can do. We generally leave a little bit of the project team's capacity and capability on the running workflows to accommodate all the other small changes that will come. And they always come. But at this point, what we're talking about system integration. So upstream, downstream, sideways. We're talking about closer look at the data. Do we need to put some fancy automation? Do we want to plug in Power BI to our Flowable database? What else we can do with that workflow? How many other features we can do? Can we maybe get an AI model incorporated? We also, at that point, will start thinking about the structured end user support. So, and then every organization, in fact, I think every different part of big organizations, they would have their own established and agreed ways of how they do end user support. And at that point, you basically take your child and you let it go into the big world. And at that point, it is a big, full functioning and grown up application. So how do we work with that? How do we build the team? How we build capabilities? Because nobody wakes up one morning and says, I am now a fantastic Flowable modeler. I wish it could have happened like that, but it doesn't. So what happened? So the journey in my company started in 2018, as Fabio said. I joined that team in 2019. So, and at that point, we're very, very excited because to a person with Flowable, everything is a workflow. So we're exciting. We wanted to prove it. We wanted a proof of concept. We wanted to build things to showcase to people that it can work. We wanted to prove to ourselves that it works. And we wanted to work it. So what we did is we brought in Flowable modelers and Flowable developers, and we've incorporated them into our agile teams. So they were there with us every step of the way. They were helping us set up the platform. They were helping us configure our environments. They were with us at our end user sessions. They were asking questions from our business users. They were helping us define our product. They were helping us write our end user stories. And when it actually needed to, they were there and they were modeling and they're creating features. And they're solving multiple problems that our end users wanted. For example, having a rich text formatting in the text box, which we thought was superfluous, but our end users said it's an absolute must. So we worked with our Flowable colleagues who helped us very much into that. So once that was done, and we were happy that we can do the capabilities, we can deliver, we've decided to go and start ramping up the team in 2020, in the middle of pandemic. So we've started having an awful lot of video interviews. We are recruiting modelers. We are recruiting developers. We were bringing them inside of organization and onboarding them remotely and training them remotely. And in fact, when one of my first workflows went live in April 2020, the sun would not set on our team, because from our developers in India to our Flowable consultants in Switzerland, our modelers in Poland, the project team in London, and our end users in the US, both East Coast and West Coast, and I think a couple in Salt Lake City as well. It was a truly global work. And if anybody told me that you'd be able to deliver something fully remotely across multiple countries and jurisdictions, I would have said, you're joking, but we did it. And it worked really, really well. So, and the Flowable was with us at that point. So by 2022, we had about 14 modelers in my team. We had, I believe, about the same number of engineers supporting us. And I will tell you how the teams are structured in the next slide. And we still had some Flowable modelers and developers in those teams. But the training wheels came off. We knew what we were building. We have built our internal capabilities, and we cannot say thank you enough to our Flowable consultants on the ground who've managed to onboard and train and pass a whole lot of knowledge, all of it remotely, to our large teams. So from that point of view, we started asking different questions. So we would ask, we want Flowable as a product to have different features. Could you make us, can you make any certain specifications for us? Can you fix some issues that we found out in implementation? So we started asking a bit more from them, and we started asking more about product capabilities rather than how to build stuff. So where we are now, we have obviously ambitious plans for growth. There are multiple flowable pods across my entire organization globally, within the Far East, within EMEA, and within US. And what we want now is we still work very closely with Flowable. And but what we're asking for the better features. We want to have better functionality. We want to have AI assisted modeling. We want to have better, more seamless integration. We want to have better reporting coming out of the box. We want to have deployments that can happen very quickly. And that is how we use Flowable as a partner in that technology journey. So how do we actually deliver, and what does our delivery model look like? So we're agile, everybody is now. So the way it works is we have multiple agile pods across the organization. Some of them are grouped together into the chapters belonging to different business streams. But the key feature of them is that they're independent. And they're independent in the way that the fintech is independent. In the way that we control what we do, how we do it, and when we release. So technically, we have iterations of roughly 2 weeks. We would release probably not every iteration, but every other iteration, just so we can get enough features and functionality together. We can release quicker. If we have a production issue, I think our shortest time from finding a bug in production and releasing a fix was 8 hours. But I would not recommend that. That was very stressful, 8 hours. So in the pod, you'd have a product owner. So that'll be somebody like me. And what the product owner worries about is about the sponsors, about the integrations, about interactions with the wider part of the world. You worry about the features, you worry about making end users happy, you worry about everything to go around that. And you also need to worry about the future. So your planning horizon would be 12, 18, 24 months, understanding where the business wants to go and how you need to make decision going forward. We'd have a Scrum Master. Usually it is a part-time role, could be business, could be engineering. The main role for that person is to keep the team honest. Make sure we have the dailies, make sure we have the retros, make sure we do all the planning meetings and keeping on our velocity. So how many things can we do? When people go on holidays, why Diwali for us is as sort of like big and stressful time as Christmas for everybody else, because that's when we have most of the team out. We have modelers. So generally, they are the people we would get from the business analysis background. And we would look for people who are more technical and who like building things, but also who know how to ask questions from the end users and getting straight answers from them. You'd have between 3 and 4 modelers in a pod, depending on what the pod wants to do and how it wants to build it. Would have some Java developers. So they are the people who do Java, because underneath Flowable, there's a lot of Java code, I've been told. And they do integrations with our system. So our user authorization system is the same for the whole firm. We need to work on that. They integrate with our Outlook service because we need email notification, needs to work from there. Anything else, like we need to incorporate into the workflow. So if we want the workflow to go and ask our risk system to run a risk model and return us a value, the Java developers will do that. And from that point, just like I said before, in the early stages, we had Flowable people on the ground who were both modelers and developers, and that they were helping us a lot in that. Would have a QA and DevOps. The QA sometimes would have 1 for pod, sometimes 2. And DevOps usually would be a shared resource because we can have one DevOps for 3 or 4 pods, and then we just make sure we share him accurately. And the main issue for the QAs and DevOps is, does it work? Is it the bug? Is it the feature? And also, funnily enough, unlike industry convention, we mostly release to production Fridays. So what are the business benefits? So why would we do all of those things as we do them at the moment? So the complex organization, financial organizations are complex. Complexity is only ever going up, it's never going down. And the cost of compliance for any big bank, any big institution, they're rising. I have yet in my professional career seen a regulator who would then say, actually, those regulations, yeah, we're going to recall them. Never happens. They want more. And for that, what the workflows do for us is they deliver audit trails. They deliver control evidence. They deliver control reports. So once we design them and they're working fine, anybody from internal audit to the regulators, when they come in and tell us, show us how controlled that process is, we can just give them either the reports from the workflow, or we can tell them, come into our workflow and have a look. And that basically makes us more effective because compliance just happens. We don't need to invest anything else more into that. Data. Business loves data. Data enables better decision making. Data enables strategic planning. Data enables a whole lot of reporting. And also, in this day and age, data is what is going to be feeding our AI models, because you cannot train an AI model on multiple emails, messy spreadsheets, and some more documents. You need to have structured data if you want to have a good structured outcomes out of that. And Flowable does it. And then organizations, they have a lot of highly trained, highly well-paid professionals in all of their guises. So you would have your auditors, your business managers, your risk officers, your underwriters, lawyers, finance experts, and all of those people are there for the very specific purpose. They need to add value. And what we do with the workflows internally within our organization is we enable them to spend more time actually doing things that they're paid to do, coming up with creative solutions, solving complex cases, coming up with innovations, driving forward new business ideas. And instead of sitting there sifting through emails, going through the spreadsheets and trying to find out where's the latest copy of that report you've been looking for. And that, in short, is how we use Flowable low-code solutions to empower knowledge workers. Thank you very much for your attention. And Fabio, I think now it's over to you.
Wow, Oksana, that was inspiring. It's nice how you put together our journey in the last 5 years in this session. I really enjoyed to listen to you.
Yeah, for 4 years and 9 slides. No, 5 years and 9 slides.
For the audience, I mean, now there is really a possibility to ask questions. So you have the chat on the side, right? I mean, just ask your questions. We will pick up as many as possible. But before I start picking up some questions which came up already, I have a question by my own. I mean, how do you ensure that what you learn, especially, you mentioned remote, COVID and stuff like that, right? And how do you ensure that, this knowledge is shared across the different implementations, right? You mentioned you had 30 business cases, so it sounds like a lot, right? But how you didn't do the same mistake twice at the end, right?
Well, but yeah, I think doing the same mistake twice is my worst nightmare, and also is reinventing the bicycle within the same organization over and over again. So what we have is since 2022, we have a Flowable Guild, and it is an informal organization which is run by Flowable practitioners within our organization for Flowable practitioners in our organization. It spans all of the business units and all of the geographies. And what we do there is we have obviously a Confluence page and a knowledge base. And also we have monthly calls where people will come over and they will showcase some really cool and exciting things that they've done with Flowable. So, for example, integrating Power BI, because it's different for every organization. In our organization, it was quite tricky, but they were willing to share it. And people say, oh, we want some of that. And they talk to each other and they share knowledge. And that's how it gets thrown around. So people start knowing people start asking, they figure out who the experts are. And generally on that point, it works really well because it brings a spirit of community. And it is always really good to see successes that people have and then saying like, oh, I want that feature.
Cool. So it's not just doing the mistake twice, but actually even using the same things twice, right? That's good. Then there is a question from Franklin. He's asking, in a nutshell, how long did it take from funding till early adoption release?
Very good question. Basically, it depends on where you are in the process. So if you are in the very, very first page and you don't have any resources who can do Flowable and you don't have any technology underneath you, then you would need to have it first. Generally, once we would have the platform there, or at least the space where you can host your Flowable, because we can't host anything offline, everything is in-house. I would say between the very early adoption, between 3 to 6 months, depending on the complexity. And once again, depending how many people you have in your organization who know how to do Flowable, or whether you have budget to, like we did in the early days, to bring in Flowable experts to contact to work with you on that.
Thank you. One more is about from Mary Collins. Do you use Flowable Work and Flowable Forms in all your solutions?
The ones that I know about my team, yes. We have, what we're trying to do is we're trying to use the Flowable out of the box. And that's because one part of our organization, they tried to use it headless and they started building the React screens on their own, and they found out that actually adds an extra layer of complexity, which makes it difficult. So we've looked at their experience and we said we want a slightly different bicycle. So we would use as much of the benefits of the, once again, out of the box Flowable. And that's why we would go back to Fabio and his team and say, could you please make more features to put into that box so we can use them easily rather than develop them ourselves.
Cool. Then there is a very good question where I would like the answer from Natasha is, does your company have their own Flowable resources, or do you always engage Flowable professional services?
Right now we have our own because it's been a long journey and we've had a lot of help from Fabio's colleagues. But no, at the moment, all the resources we have are our own. So we've got people who've been working with that for 3-5 years. And when we recruit now, we train people internally. We still work with Flowable and we organize the training sessions where we need to do that. But no, basically for all intents and purposes, this is now what we call in-house product. So we own the platform, we own the implementation. We have internal resources who go in and build stuff and release stuff and maintain stuff. So as far as we know, that is ours.
Good. And then another one from Fabrice. It's about how does business manage workflow and other application, or dedicate for workflow only? Is the business, how I interpret it is actually, is the business doing the workflows, or do you?
No, I think if it's going towards the, I think it's called citizen-based development, we haven't tried it. And the reason being is, first of all, I haven't really come across the place where the business would have resources who can be designated to go and create the workflows and do their day job at the same time. And secondly, it's still a software, so it needs to go through the structured release and development process. So you still need to have engineers, and just on that fact alone that there's a lot of controls about how we develop and release and control our business application, our data, we would have the teams which are designated to that. Having said that, there are quite a few teams, especially currently being set up, which are geared towards like the cross functional collaboration. So different functions can go to them and say, guys, we've got some budget. Would you build us a workflow?
Good. I mean, one more question. I mean, I'm just wondering by myself again, like, I mean, how many applications you brought live? I mean, it's been a lot.
Well, I think personally, last time I've counted, I think it was about 13 or 14. But overall on our platform, centrally, I think there are probably 40, maybe closer to 60 if you count the other locations. I don't think I'll be able to give you an exact number, but it's a lot. And if you think that back in 2019, I think we had one or two. It's been a very, very good exponential curve.
That's nice to hear. I think we are running a bit out of time. So I want to, again, thank you very much, Oksana, for being here today. It was, I mean, for me, very, very inspiring to hear you today. It was a great presentation. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Fabio. Thank you, everybody, for your attention.